Dalit. Today's Daf Dalit. And we are holding at the very, very, very end of Pei Gimel Amid Beis, the last few words of Rabbi Shmuel Rav Yossi. So as we said yesterday, we're embarking on a few days of Agadata, thankfully. And we left off was an interesting story of Rabbi Elazar of Shimon. This is Rav Shimon Bar Yochai's son, and he kind of accepted or was kind of forced almost into some position where he was supposed to,
be accountable.
Exactly, right? He was supposed to detect these ganavim, and then he ended up, there was some story with this guy who kind of insulted him, and he ended up, the guy was hanged, and Rabbi Elazar of Shimon is going to come up again today. He really never felt good about it. And even though the Talmidim tried to tell him, don't worry, this guy was not a good guy, he deserved it. And he even did this sort of surgery. That's really where the daf ended yesterday. He did some sort of surgery to kind of prove out that even his innards, not his innards, but his fat was, none of it decomposed or whatever it is. We'll see later in today's daf. He still didn't have real Yishuv Adas about this whole thing. But one of the things that the Gemara ended up yesterday was saying that he was a very heavy person, and that's also going to come up again today. So last few words of Pei Gimel Amid Beis. Va'af Rabbi Shmuel Rav Yossi, Matakiyai Maisa. Also, Rabbi Shmuel Rav Yossi had a very similar story liaday, where he became this constable, as Eddie mentioned. He was supposed to, tell people to the government, whatever it is. And Paga Bey Eliyahu. So in yesterday's story, it was Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, who went over to Rabbi Elazar of Shimon and said, what are you doing? This time it was Eliyahu Hanavi. But Amar Le, Rabbi Eliyahu Hanavi said to Rabbi Shmuel Rav Yossi, Ad Masaya to Mosar Amo Shalalokenu La Riga. Why are you doing this? Why are you being Mosar on various, Jews to the government? So Amar Le, my Avid, what am I supposed to do? Harmana Demalku. I mean, this is my job now. You know what I mean? I'm just following orders. So Amar Le, so it's Eliyahu Hanavi saying to Rabbi Shmuel Rav Yossi. Now, by the way, we said that Rabbi Elazar of Shimon, his father was Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shmuel Rav Yossi, his father is Rav Yossi Bar Chalafta. So Rav Yossi and Rav Shimon and Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda, they were all the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, who, following Rabbi Akiva's death of his 24,000 Talmidim, they were the Talmidim that kind of then carried on, the legacy, and Rabbi Akiva ultimately built up his yeshiva again. But it's like both of their fathers were, colleagues and Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. So Eliyahu Hanavi said, so again, Rabbi Shmuel Rav Yossi said, what can I do? This is my job. So Eliyahu Hanavi answered back, he said, Avicha arok la'asya. Your father, President Rabbi Yossi, he was exiled to Asya. At arok la'Lutkia, so go run away. Go run away to Lutkia. Rashi, amazingly, doesn't really tell us what the story is. Rabbi Yossi was exiled somewhere. So I was looking it up this morning, and this is the reason why I'm bringing this up. This was the story of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. So in that time, Churban Beitar and all that, so they weren't allowed to teach Torah. Rabbi Akiva did teach Torah, and Rabbi Akiva was killed. But the four of them, or the five of them, I forgot who the story was, but it was Rabbi Yehuda, and it was Rabbi Yossi, and it was Rabbi Shimon. They were all together, and Rabbi Yehuda, I think, opened up the conversation. He said, look at these Romans, they're building these nice bathhouses, and they're building these nice whatever it is. And Rabbi Yossi stayed silent, and Rabbi Shimon basically said, what are you talking about? Everything they're doing for themselves. And the story got back to the Romans, and they said Rabbi Yehuda was going to be elevated because he praised us. Rabbi Shimon's going to be put into exile. We're going to kill him or whatever it is. And Rabbi Yossi is going to be sent to exile. The Gemara says he was sent to Tzipori. So I don't know if that's Asya and Tzipori are the same thing. I have no idea. But the point is, that's, I think, what this story is getting at. Rabbi Shimon was sent to exile, ended up in the cave for 13 years with his son, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, it's like all amazing how we're, again, leading up to Lag BaOmer, and a lot of these stories are at least kind of somewhat referenced in these blocks. Either way, so he said, run away to Lutkia. But that's the end of that story. But we said yesterday that Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon was a very heavy person. Apparently, Reb Yishmael Reb Yossi was also a very heavy person. So the Gemara says, Kiavim Miklai, Rabbi Yishmael Reb Yossi, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, when the two of them got together, Bahadad Yadadi, pressed, their stomachs against each other, Hava Ayel Bakra Ditori Beinaiv Lahava Nagabahu. Literally, cattle can walk underneath them, and there would be space. That's how heavy these two guys were.
That's tall they were.
That's how tall they were? Yes, exactly. So Amr Lahua Hahu Matranisa. So a certain Matranisa is normally like a hush of a woman, so like a noble woman or something. She said to them, Benechem Einam shalachem. There's no way that your children are yours. They have to be mamzerim because you guys can never have tashmish with your wives. You're too big. So Amrullah, they said to her, Shalahen gadol mishalan. Our wives are as large as we are. So she said, well, then kol shekain. I mean, then you're not answering the question. So Ika da Amri Hachi Amrullah. Some say they answered the following. They said, Kiki ish gevura so. They referenced the pasuk in Shoftim, essentially saying our Aver Tashmish is very, very large, just like the rest of our bodies. And Ika da Amri Hachi Amrullah Ahava dochekes es abasar. Essentially, where there's a will, there's a way, right? Our wives have a lot of taiva, and we figure it out. But the Gemara is basically going to ask what we're probably all thinking, which is, why did they even entertain this woman? Like, who cares what she said? Like, just walk away, right? Why do you have to even talk to her? So the Gemara says, because the bottom line is, I'm sure she wasn't the only one that had this thought. So they really wanted to clear up any sort of, rumors or talk or whatever it is to say absolutely not. No one should have a havamina that we are unable to, have tashmish with our wives. Amr of Yochanan. So Rav Yochanan said, really on this topic, Rav Yochanan was also a very large Baal Basar. Amr of Yochanan, he said, Evare, Rabbi Shmuel Rav Yossi, his Aver Tashmish was Kechamas Bas Teisha Kabin. It was very large, some measurement. Well, in those days, they went to the mikvah a lot. I have no idea. Amr of Papa, Evare Rabbi Yochanan, Kechamas Bas Chameshas Kabin. His Aver was that big. The Amr Labas Shloshas Kabin. And Rav Papa Gufei, and even Rav Papa's was Kizikore de Harpana, was, I don't know, again, a certain size, a basket of whatever it is.
Papa was big too.
They was big. So again, look at the top totos. Again, if you're just wondering, like, why is the Gemara even talking about this? If you right, the Gemara, if you look at the top totos, he says, again, clearly this was a conversation that people were having. So the Gemara felt the need to talk about this. Either way, we're going to get into some really famous Agarata. Again, Rav Yochanan was a very big person. He was also an incredibly handsome person. So Amar Rav Yochanan, Ana Ishtayri Mishapiri Yerushalayim. I am one of the remaining, the most beautiful people of Yerushalayim. And the Gemara says, if you want to have an appreciation for just how beautiful Rav Yochanan was, Haiman Debai Mechli Shufri. Rav Yochanan, he was a very humble person too. Yeah. Mese Kasla de Kaspa Mibe Salki, you got to get like a silver, bowl or whatever cup, literally right out of the hands of the silversmith. When Amale Pritzia de Rumna Sumka and get fresh, red pomegranates, which I guess would make everything more attractive and fill it up. And Menahadle Klila di Varda Sumka Lepume, and then fill it up with roses too, which I guess also probably makes it very beautiful. The Nosva being Shimshal Latula, put it right
where are we holding?
And the shade. You kind of missed the first part of the daf, which was definitely the most entertaining part. But we're about maybe 25 lines down of Pei Daled Amid Aleph.
Okay, thank you.
The last word on the line is Hahu. First word on the line is Lepume.
Okay, got it.
But if you do that, again, you take your silver and the pomegranates and the roses and you put it right in between the sun and the shade and the right angles. Ahuzar zure me'ain shufred Rabbi Yochanan. Then you have an appreciation. That's me'ain, the beauty of Rabbi Yochanan. But the Gemara says, Aini, was Rabbi Yochanan really such a handsome fellow, or was at least handsome to this extreme? Ba'amar mar shufred Rav Kahana, the beauty, whatever, of Rav Kahana was Ke'ain Shufra Dravavo. And Shufra Dravavo, Me'ain Shufra de Yaakov Avinu. And Shufra de Yaakov Avinu, Me'ain Shufra de Adam Arishon. So again, hard to really appreciate all these things. But the point is, in this list of these beautiful people that, all the way back to Adam Arishon, I think it's even Adam Arishon, Kodem Achei, whatever it is. The point is, you don't see Rabbi Yochanan in any of this. And we're talking about various Amoraim. So was Rabbi Yochanan really top 5? I mean, it doesn't seem like he made this list. Like Gemara says, Gila Rabbi Yochanan, Lo Kachashavle. Or it says, Stein, Rabbi Yochanan, the Hadras Panim Lahavya. He did not have a Hadras Panim, which Rashi says means a Zakein. He did not have a beard. Because he didn't have a beard, he wasn't listed in this, top 5 list. But no one should say, I mean, clearly, Rabbi Yochanan was unbelievably beautiful, as we'll see in a story a little later on. So Rabbi Yochanan, Haba Azov Yasiv, Ashare, like in all these stories, I feel like you got to take with a grain of salt, and you got to understand on levels much, much, much deeper than, unfortunately, I am capable of doing. But either way, Rabbi Yochanan he would sit right outside the mikvah in the evenings, right? And Amar Ki Salkan Benos Yisrael Matvilas Mitzvah, when the women leave the mikvah for their tilas mitzvah. Lifku bi, let them, bump into me. B'nei shapiri kavasi, they should have sons that are as beautiful as me, and gemiri raisa kavasi, and as learned as I am. So again, do not try this at home. So what?
Don't hang out with the big.
I'm saying this is not for us necessarily. I'm related.
It's not about Rabbi Yosef
Yeah, okay, fair.
that he had very long eyelashes, so he couldn't actually see the women.
Oh, well, that's a good call. That was a Gemara we saw not too long ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And expect we have
Rav
the children
Kahana.
are gonna be smart like him.
All right. But yeah, it's a very good point. So Amrle Rabbanon, lo mista bimar me'ena bisha. I mean, aren't you at least concerned? I mean, the way you're talking about ayin hara, right? So Amar Lahu Anna Mizara de Yosef Kasina. I come from the Zara of Yosef Atzadik, the lo shalta ba'ena, right? The Gemara says a few times that ayin hara doesn't touch the Zara shel Yosef. Lo shalta ba'ena bisha dechsiv, ben poras Yosef, ben poras Ali Ayin. This is in the Berachas Yaakov. Talks about the Ali Ayin. The translation is really that he was charming, right? But V'amar Vavo, I'll take Ale Ayin Ella Ole Ayin. Yosef is almost like above the Ayin Hara. And Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina Bar Mehacha had a different pasuk in the Pesuk Malach Hagoal. This is when Yaakov is benching this Yosef's children, right? Prime Menashe says V'yidgu larov b'karev haaretz, right? That they should multiply like fish. Ma dagim shabiyam mayim mechasim osam, just like the dagim of the sea, water covers them. Be'ena ayin shaletes behem, and the ayin can't see them. Av zar shel Yosef, be'ena ayin shaletes behem. So too, the zar shel Yosef, they're not susceptible to ayin hara. Either way, the next is maybe the most famous story of today, and this is the meeting, the original encounter of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. So Yom Echad Hava Kasachi Rabbi Yochanan b'Yardena. Rabbi Yochanan was swimming in the water. Reish Lakish, we know, was not from, right? He was like a bandit of some sort. And Chazir Reish Lakish, the Shtavar liyardena abasrei. And Reish Lakish saw what he thought was a beautiful woman, and he jumped in full force. Whatever he did clearly impressed Rabbi Yochanan. So Amar Le, Rabbi Yochanan said to Reish Lakish, Chelcha le'oraita, all this strength and everything that you have, you should channel it towards Torah. Amar Le, shofrach lenashi, your beauty belongs to a woman. What are you doing like this? Wasted on you. Amar Le, so Rabbi Yochanan said back to Reish Lakish, ihadras bach, if you are choser b'tshuva, if you become, a Talmud Chacham, yavina lach achusi t'shaferi minai, I will give you my sister's hand in marriage. She is more beautiful than I am. Kabbalah Le, Reish Lakish was like, absolutely. And Bayil Mahazer Lasuye Ma'ane, Reish Lakish now tried to jump back out of the water and do whatever he did to go the other way to get his clothing below Matzi. And he wasn't able to. Rashi says, he quotes, right, it's Torah Mateshas Koko, that learning saps your strength. So just by accepting to now learn, he wasn't able to do what he was able to do jumping into the water. And Hadar Akrai, Va'asne, and then, ultimately they became Charusas, and they learned, and learned Mishnais, and learned Torah. The Shavie Gavra Rabba. Of course, Reish Lakish became Reish Lakish. So Yom Echad, one day they were learning together, and have a Maplagi Be Midrasha. They were learning the following sugya in Beis Medrash. And this is a complicated sugya in Maseches Kalim. Right, so Kalim is all about, it's very long, and it's very technical, and it's all about various Kalim, and when they're whatever it is. So Hasayif, Hasakin, Hapigion, Haromech, these are various weapons of war. Swords, knives, and sickles, and spears, and magal yad, magal katzir, sickles, or whatever it is. The question is, when are these kalim mekabel tuma? Mishas gmar malachton. So they become mekabel tuma when there's a gmar malacha. So me'emas like gmar malachton. So the obvious next question: when is the gmar malacha? Rabbi Yochanan amar mishayit sarf mekivshan. When they come out of the furnace, right? That's how I guess you fashion these metallic tools. So and weapons. So when they come out of the furnace, that's when they're mekabel tuma. Reish Lakish amar misha yitzach tzechan b'mayim. No, there's one more step. You got to take them out of the furnace, and then you got to do something with water, and that gives them their shine or whatever, their shimmer or whatever it is, and that strikes the fear into your opponent when they have that look. So maybe the water doesn't necessarily do anything to the metal, but it gives it a certain appearance. So Amar Le, Yochanan said to Reish Lakish, Lista Balista used the yada. I mean, clearly you have some experience here. This was your line of work, right? So you obviously know, so I'll trust you on this one. But I guess that kind of rubbed Reish Lakish the wrong way. right?
You're not supposed to bring up past.
I was thinking about this last night. We had that Gemara in the Sugyas of Onas Tvarim that if someone has a path like that, you're not supposed to bring it up. So again, I don't want to, this is Rabbi Yochanan, obviously, but the point is, obviously, you rubbed him the wrong way. And Amar Lei, Maya, honestly, what have you done for me, Rabbi Yochanan? Hasam Rebbe Karli and Acham Rebbe Karli. Over there, I was the Rebbe of all the bandits, and now meaning I get honor either way. What have you done for me? So Amar Lei, fair. Amar Lei, Ahani Lach. What type of question is that? Like, you're from, you're not under the Kanfei Ashchina. Either way, clearly this was an interesting conversation. And Chalash Daite to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan and Chalisha Zadas, because of I guess the impact or that maybe he felt that he said something that was inappropriate or Reish Lakish took something the wrong way. Whatever it is, Rabbi Yochanan and Chalisha Zadas. But because Rabbi Yochanan and Chalisha Zadas, Chalash Reish Lakish, that literally caused Reish Lakish to now become sick, and as we'll see, very seriously sick. So Asai Achte, so Rabbi Yochanan's sister, who was Reish Lakish's wife, comes in Kapachia, and she starts crying to Rabbi Yochanan. Amrulei Asay, but please make him better, if for nothing else, for the sake of my children, who are now going to be Yisomim. So Amarla Azva Yisoma Ani Achaya. He quoted a pasuk in Yirmiyahu. Don't worry about it. Hashem's going to take care of the Yisomim. Okay. Asay Bishvil Al Manusi. I mean, do it for me. I'm about to come in Almana. Amarla, the end of that pasuk, Val Menusech Alai Tivtachu. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of the almanas. Nach Nafshay Drishim Malakish. So ultimately, he did pass away. And Vahava Kamestar of Yochanan Basrei Tuva, but Rabbi Yochanan now, fine. Hashem takes care of the almanos and the Yisomim, but Rabbi Yochanan himself lost, his chavrusa, and he really took it very, very hard. So Amar Rabbanan Man Lezel Leisve Ledaite. Who can make this better? So Nazel Rabbi Elazar Ramidas. It was this other big Talmud Rabbi Elazar Ramidas. The Mechadin Shmaitze, that he knows how to learn. So why don't we get Rabbi Elazar Ramidas, let him come over and try to cheer him up? So Azal Yasib Kamei and call Milsa to have a Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Whenever Rabbi Yochanan would say in learning, Amar later, Rabbi Elazar Ramidas would say back to him, Tani Dimasiyah, meaning he was that smart that anything he said, he was able to find a raya from a Bryce or something like that. But Amar, Rabbi Yochanan wasn't impressed. He said, Kibar Lakisha? I mean, you're like Reish Lakish? Bar Lakisha, Kiava Amina Milsa, if I said something, have a makshali Esrin Ba'arba Kushyasa, he would ask me 24 kashas, Mafrakina lay Esrin Ba'arba Pruke, and I would respond with 24 answers, and that made the whole thing better, right? All of us understood everything on a deeper level because we had this conversation. And all you're telling me is that, oh, you're saying good. There's a Tana, there's a Bryce that supports you. Meaning, do I not know that what I'm saying is good? That there's Bryce that's supporting me? I don't need that. I don't need someone agreeing with me. I need someone asking me questions. So have a ka'azil, a karamane. So when he literally toward Kriya, he couldn't. No one could comfort him. The kabachi, and he would cry. Amar hecha abar lakisha, hecha abar lakisha. He would just say, "Where is Reish Lakish? Hava katzavach adesh aftaite." He was really having a difficult time with this. And Bel Rabbanan Rachme Alei Benach Nafshe, and the Rabbanan really just put him out of his misery. They davened for him, and ultimately he himself died. That's really the end of that story. And somehow the Gemara is just going to go shift directly back to the end of yesterday's stuff, which is Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon, who is on the operating table, right? And he takes out all of this fat, and that should have comforted him that none of his fat decomposed. But the Gemara says, "Vafilu hachi," top of Pei Dalad Amavez. Vafilu hachi lo samach Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon. He still wasn't totally satisfied with all of this. So, sorry, Vafilu hachi lo samach Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon adaite. So kabel alei yisure, and he accepted upon himself additional yisurim to kind of make this better for him. So, ba'urta every single evening havu ma'ichle shitin namti. They would literally give him 60 rags. Remember, he was a very large person, so he opened it up. So he needed 60 rags, and Letzafra in the morning. What? I guess there was plenty more. I don't know. Letzafra in the morning. Negdi mitose shitim meshichli dama vekiva. And I don't know the exact translation of these words. I actually last night when we have a gadatai, I'll take a pencil and I'll write in the translation. And my pencils didn't have any lead. None of my kids' pencils. There was 10 of them, and they stand of the school year. You know what I mean? What are we gonna do? So I'm just. Whatever, Yeah, exactly. When I went to the office more, I stole more pencils. I don't go the opposite way. So either way, in the morning, these 60 rags were filled with pus and blood and whatever it is. The point is, the point is that's how much he was accepting these Yisurim, and that's what these Yisurim were. Lamacher, so then to get him better the next morning, right? Avdale de Bisu, his wife would have to prepare for him Shitin Mine Lifta, Va'achaluhu Bari. She had to prepare them this meal of 60 something fig related, and that's what would get him better. But this was done on a daily basis, right? And he was a very big person, so you can imagine the amount of laundry, right? And this and the food and all that kind of stuff. And it was a very significant expense, which we'll see is a big deal. And below Hava Shafka lay Debisu Lemefak Lebe Midrash. The wife, his wife was also very protective, and she was like, listen, she didn't realize he was doing this to himself. So she was like, the last thing I need is you going to base medrash and then everyone bothering you, and you need your strength. So you got to stay home, learn at home, you know what I mean? And hopefully you can get over this thing. But again, she didn't realize that he was the one that was accepting it upon himself. So again, she said, stay home from base medrash. But then in the evening, Amar Lahu, he would say, Achai v'rei, Bo, come. He would like invited this Yisurim on himself. And then Mitzafra, in the morning, he would say, Amar Lahu Zilu v'mei b'tel Torah. Even though he couldn't go to base medrash, he still wanted to learn. So the point is, he basically was able to control when these Yisurim would come and when they wouldn't come. But again, the wife doesn't know about this. She just knows that every single night she's got to prepare these rags, and then in the day she's got to wash the rags, and she's got to give him all this food. So Yom Echad Shama Debisu, one night the wife heard him saying this, and Amrle At Kamaisis Luhu Iluyach, you're the one that's inviting all this Yisurim on you. Kalis Mamuch Labes Abba. We're gonna deplete all of our funds, right? This is obviously very expensive. So Imradash, she repelled, and Azal Labes Nasash, she went back to her parents' house, and that was it. So then Saliku, what does Saliku mean? Sorry. So Saliku va'asu hanach shitin sapunai. Gemara says all of a sudden these 60 sailors show up, and Ailule shitin avde, they come with 60 servants, and kinakitu shitin arnaki with 60 wallets. They have plenty of money and plenty of hands to help. But Abdullah Shitun Mine Lifta, and they were able to prepare all the food. Rashi actually says an interesting story that these sailors were out at sea, and there was a horrible storm, and they all davened in the merit of Rabbi Elazar of Shimon. They should be saved, and they were saved. So they went to Rabbi Elazar of Shimon to like thank him and give him all this money. So the point is, the wife leaves, she runs away because she's like, this is getting too expensive. The next day, all of a sudden, he's got all this money and all these people. So they continue, the whole thing. And va'akaluhu. Well, we'll see. So Yom Echad, one day she's probably feeling very guilty about all this. So Amar Lala Barta, she says to her daughter, Lili, Bakiba Avuch, go check on your father, see how he's doing. He's probably not doing very well because we have to leave. Right? So Maika Avida Idna. So Asya, she comes, and Amar La, he says to her, Zili Amrli Imech. This is Rabbi Elazar Shimon saying to his daughter, go tell your mom, Shalanu Gadol Mishalahem. What we have now is way more than what you guys have in your father's house. And Karya Nafshe, Haisa Kania Socher, Mimerchak Tavi Lachma, right? Which is obviously, from Eshes Chas. I don't know if that was like a bit of a pun. You know what I mean? But the point is, he's saying, we got our sustenance, from Mimerchak Tavi Lachma. Sailors come and they give us the food. Either way, Achal Vishasi Ubari, he ate, he drank, he gets better, and he doesn't have his wife to stop him from going to base medrash. So Nafak Leve Midrash, he goes to base medrash, and Asu Lakame Shitin Mine Dama, and they brought him 60 different kashas of women, that had blood that needed, an answer. And Ta'arinu, he said each and every one of these 60 were all tar. So Hava Kamarnani, so the Rabbanan were like a little like, really, Kava Kamarnani Rabbanan, but Amri Salka Taitach, less Buchad Suffolk. There's not a single one of these is a Suffolk. All 60, you're saying they're just fine. Not a single one of his Suffolk. Amar Luhu. To most of you, if I'm right, you Kulam Sacharim, each and every one of these 60 women will give birth to boys. They laughed, and it came Achas my name. But that's how sure I am. Remember, this is the guy that was saying this guy's a Ganev because he was sitting in the bar at 4:00, right? He's saying every single one of these is tar, and if I'm wrong, then out of the 60, there will be one girl. If I'm right, there will be 60 males. And now Yikulam Scharim, all of them were in fact males. Vasikulu Rabbi Elazar al Shmein. They all named their sons Rabbi Elazar, for him. So Tanya, Amar Rebbe. So Rebbe said, Hama Periya Verivya Bitla Rishazumi Yisrael. From the story, he said, from the fact that he wasn't able to come to base medrash, or Rashi from Shatim, or from the fact that the government made him be this job that resulted in all this mess. Think about all the Puri Europe, because there were all these women that probably had all these fakos. They needed a Talmud Chacham like Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon to tell them that they were okay to be with their husbands, but he wasn't able to come to the base magistrate, or he was busy, or whatever it is. So Kama Peri Rivia was bitla because of that. And Kiava Nicha, this is, by the way, if you thought this daf was already wild, it's getting more wild. So Kiava Nicha Nashe, when he was ready to die, Amar Leila de Bisu, I guess, moved back in. He said back to his wife, Yadana b'Rabbanan d'Rasichia. I know that there are Rabbanan that are not happy right now. V'lo Askibi Shapir, and they're not going to bury me with my father, Shimon Bar Yochai, in Meron, again, 3 days before Lag BaOmer. They're not going to put me with my father. So, and just leave me in the attic. Don't even bury me. Just leave me in the attic, and don't be nervous about this. Don't be scared. So Amar Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani Ishtayli Ima Rabbi Yonasan. He said, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani said, I once encountered the mother of Rabbi Yonasan. The Bisu Rabbi Elazar of Shimon. She knew the wife of Rabbi Elazar of Shimon, and lo pachos mitam nesrei below tfei me esrin utrain shnin. He was up there in that attic for somewhere between 18 to 22 years. Oh, Gnisa Baal Yasa. Just unburied, just sitting there. And Kiava Slikna Ma'ananale Bemezia, he hava Mishtamta Benisa Mine, Ava Asi Dama. And the point is he didn't decompose. So if you took a hair out of him, like blood came out, like something like that. Like he literally was like not healthy, he was dead. But the point is the body like really stayed intact. Yoma Chad, Chazai Riksha, Dika Nafik Maone, and Chalesh Daite. One day she saw a worm come out of his ear, and she got very, very nervous, like, oh my God, now he's about to decompose. But it's Chazli Bechelma, but he appeared to her in a dream. And Amarli, Lo Midi, don't worry about it. No, I'm not decomposing. This is just a punishment because one day I saw someone making fun of a Tzura Merabana, whatever it is, and I should have done more to stop it, but I didn't. And this is my punishment that a worm is coming out of my ear. Don't worry, I'm not about to decompose. When there were two people that needed it in Torah, they would just stand outside, and Mar Milte, they would just have the court case right outside this house. And then Nafik Kala Ma'al Yasa, and a voice would come out of this attic. Va'amri ish ploniat chayiv, ish ploniat zakai. Okay. Yom achad havakam minsa debitu bahadi shadevta. One day his wife got into an argument, presumably with someone else in the neighborhood, and Amr Allah, and this other woman said to his wife, Dehei kabaila, you should be like your husband, Shlonitin the kavura, that he was never entitled to a kavura. And I guess that was the final straw. Then the Rabbanan were like, listen, people are going to make a mockery of this. We got to do something about it. So Amr Rabbanan, Kuli Hai Vade Lavaraka, right? This is too much. So Ika the Amri, that was one version of the story of why they ultimately decided to bury him. The other version is Rav Shimon ben Yochai. See, Rav Shimon ben Yochai himself said, he approached, he came to them in a dream, and Amar Lahu, Preda Achas Yeshli Benechem, I have one Preda. Viyatim Rosim Lavia Etzli, Azar Rabban al right? And they wanted to go bury him. But the local townspeople, they didn't want to remove him from this attic. To call Shni, the Havatayim of Elazar of Shimon Ba'al Yasa, because for as long as he was there, whether it was 18 years, 22 years, whatever it is, and this was good for the town. Like wild animals weren't coming to the town as long as he was there in that attic. No one wanted to move things. But Yom Achad, Ma'ala Yom Kipuriyah, one day it was Erev Yom Kippur, and a treaty, and everyone was busy. And Shedra Rabbanan, they did some mission, and they got him. Libnei Beri Vasku La Arse Bantuya La Marasa Davu, and they went to the father's burial cave, which of course is Meron. And Ashkechua, what do they find? La Achna, the Hadrale, La Marta, and they find the snake coiled around the heart, doesn't want to let them in. So Amrullah, so they said to the snake, Achna, Pischli Pich, Bikanes Ben Eitel Aviv. Right, like in my mind, it's like an opening scene from Aladdin. It's like open sesame, but they do, and pasach lahu, and the snake goes away, and the cave opens up. Okay, So now he's buried. Shalach Rebbe l'devar ishto. So this is Rebbe, as in Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. He goes now to, she's now available, the widow, and he says, would you consider marrying me? Shalach alei. This is her response to, again, to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, right? This is who we're talking about. She says, Klish and Ishtamish bo kodesh, Ishtamish b'chol. Like, that was her response. Like, absolutely not. Like, you're no match for my husband. Common Amran, another version of this was Ba'asar Demari Besa Tale Zaine, Kulba Raya Kulse, Pla, like with the master of this house, whatever the weapons that he had, or whatever it is, right? The point is the same idea, right? The point is, you're no match for my husband. So Shalach La, so his response was, Nihid Torah, clearly your husband was better than me in Torah. But is he better in Ma'is and Tovim? And Shalchalei, that's above my pay grade. I don't know the Torah. But Ma'is and Yadana. Ma'is, clearly I know he was better than you. The Kabbalah Yisurim, because I know that he accepted upon himself Yisurim, and that proves that he was better than you even in Ma'is. So but Torah, my hobby, he said he was better in Torah. What is this? So Yaspi, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Shua ben Karcha. So Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel was the father of Rebbe. And Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, as we saw in yesterday's daf, was the Rebbe of Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon. So the two of them must have been, colleagues, or they were growing up at the same time. And their Rebbeim were respectively Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and Rabbi Shua ben Karcha. So when they were getting shir, Asafsele Yasvi, and so the Rebbeim giving shir would sit on something, on two stools, benches, or whatever. And Yasvi Kamai, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Rebbe, Ara. And Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, and Rebbe would sit on the ground in front of them. Makshu and Mabarku, but they were having, they were answering questions and asking questions. So so the Rebbeim said, listen, we are literally drinking from the waters of these Talmidim, meaning they're very chashiv. Like, why should they sit on the ground? So so they made them benches too, so everyone could be on like an equal playing field. But Askinu and Amr Leonard Shimon Gamliel. Oh, Askinu, I guess, what does that mean? They came up on these benches?
Hi.
I'm sorry? Oh, they were high? Okay, so Askinu, they were high. So Amr Leonard Shimon Gamliel, so Shimon Gamliel, who again was Rebbe's father, he said, Preda achas yeshli beinechem, right? I have one Preda, right? The exact same lashon that Shimon Bar Yochai said about his son. But he said, I have one Preda. I guess he didn't feel it was appropriate. He should be sitting on the safsa, right? So he says, so they put him back on the ground. But then Amar Leonard Shua ben Karcha, so Misha Yeshlo Av, Yicheh, Misha Ein Lo Av, Yamas, I guess Shimon Bar Yochai was already dead. So he said, I don't understand. Rebbe, because he has a father to take care of him, he should be taken care of. But the other one who doesn't have his father anymore, we're going to leave him on this bench, which I guess maybe they felt was bad for whatever reason. So Achtunami, the Rebbe Elazar Reb Shimon, so they put him down also. And Chalish Daite, I guess Rebbe Elazar Reb Shimon felt that he's on an equal playing field of Rebbe. He didn't feel like they were really equals. So Amar Kachashiftu Lai Kabasi, you think Rebbe is like me? So Arahu Yoma, until this day, Amar Rebbe Milsa, whenever Rebbe would say anything in Shir, have a Messiah lay, Rebbe Elazar Reb Shimon was like a good charusa, and he kind of like pumped him up a little bit, right? He would lend support to whatever he was saying. So have a Messiah lay, Rebbe Elazar Reb Shimon, but Mikan ve'elach Kama Amar Rebbe Yeshli lahashiv, and Rebbe would ever say, I've got something. Amar lay Rebbe Elazar Reb Shimon, Kach Yesh L'cha lahashiv. And Zuhi Chuvas, meaning he just like preempted him. He said, I know what you're about to say, and it's not that good. And blah, blah, blah. The point is, he was a much less supportive Chavrusa going forward. He wanted to like prove that no, we are not equals. But this is, I guess, the Gemara's way of showing that he was clearly greater from a Torah perspective. So Hashta Hakiftanu Chuvas Chavilos She'em Behem Mamish. And again, this is what you're going to say, and this is what I can answer, and blah, blah, blah. And Chalash Daite de Rebbe. So Rebbe, when he saw this, this was the conversation, he again didn't feel very good about it. So Asa Amar Le Lavu, and he told his father about it. Again, his father was Shimon ben Gamliel, and Amar Le, and his father said to him, Bini Al Yerelecha, don't worry about it. Shehu Ari ben Ari. He's an Ari, the son of an Ari, the son of Shimon ben Yochai. Ba'ata Ari ben Shul. You're also an Ari, but you're an Ari ben Shul. And that's why he's that much better than you. Meaning that putting himself down. He's saying, it's not you, it's me. You are on an equal playing field. But you have to realize he's coming from the stock of Shimon Bar Yochai. You're only coming from the stock of Shimon ben Gamliel. So that's how it is. Behind the Amar Rebbe, and like Alan just pointed out, this is what Rebbe said, Shlosha an v'sanin, there were three major people who had a lot of anava. The Eluhain, Abba, my father, Uben Ebesera, and Yonasan ben Shaul. So Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, he was Rebbe's father, Ha da Amran, Bnei Beseira da Amar Mar, Hoshivu Barosh Minu Lenasi Alein. So again, this is a reference to a story in Psachim that basically is when Hillel, as in Hillel and Shammai, when he was appointed Nasi. The story goes that they Erev Pesach, which is when you do the Karm Pesach, fell out on a Shabbos. No one knew what to do. Doesn't override Shabbos. It's not override Shabbos. Comes along Hillel, the Bnei Basera needed to know, and Hillel basically said, "This is what you do," and they made him Nasi. So that's the story of them. Oh, very good. Oh, very good. There you go. And Yonatan ben Shaul, he gave way to come le David. No, the point is he gave way. He was Shaul's son. He probably could have tried to take over the kingdom, and I think there was at one point almost like a bit of a civil war. But he ultimately stepped aside and said, "David HaMelech, you take it." The Gemara says, we'll finish in 2 lines. Mimai. Some of them I can appreciate the anivas, but like the one from Hillel and the one from Yonas, I'm like, why is that so special? Yonas ben Shaul, the Chazar the Garer Alma Basar David. He saw the writing on the wall. He saw that everyone was following after David. So of course he stepped aside. But David Serenami, the Chazil Hill, the Adam, he saw the Hill was greater. El Arab Shimon Gamliel Vadai an Vasan. We'll stop here. So we'll pick up, a few lines down, continuing the